If I take the chemicals of a brain that is stimulated by stress and put those chemicals in a plastic petri dish with my cells, you know what? The cells stop growing and they begin to die. You know what? There's an old saying called fear kills. And I go, yep, there's a biology for that. The reason why is the chemicals released by the brain in fear shut down the growth of the body and shut down the immune system. And you go, why would it do that? And the answer is simple. Let's say you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. And I say, you have, here's the amount of energy in your body, 100%. I say, how much of that 100% do you want to allocate to run away from that saber-toothed tiger? 100%. I go, yeah, so what does that mean? Well, I say, well, the body was using energy for things like growth. And you say, well, I'm an adult. This is very important. I go, yeah, but guess what? Your body's made out of about 50 trillion cells. And every day, your body loses hundreds of billions with a B, hundreds of billions of cells, normal attrition, die. Red cells are dying by billions. But by the second, you're losing billions of cells. I say, important point. How can I stay alive if I don't replace the cells? I say, then it says you have stem cells, and they're the equivalent of embryonic cells. So every day while you're losing hundreds of billions of cells, your stem cells are dividing and creating hundreds of billions of replacements. Every day you're growing. So, but what happens is you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. You have energy to replace those hundreds of billion cells. And you have a lot of energy, but I say, how much do you want from run away from the tiger? And Lewis, you said all of it. I go, yeah. So I say, what about growth? I say, stress hormones shut down the growth of the body to conserve energy to run away from the threat. So the moment you're in stress, you stop replacing the body cells. Well, that sounds like a very negative thing. If I need these body cells to live and I'm under stress, I go, but wait, go back to when the system was developed. 100,000 years ago, 200,000, a million years ago. I say, well, what stress did you have? I say, run away from the saber-toothed tiger. That's a big stress. See, but when the system was designed, that long time period ago, I said, well, what are the stresses you have? I said, well, okay, running away from the tiger. I said, does that happen every day, all day? And I go, no, that's an event when it happens. It's rare, but you run away from the tiger. And I say, well, okay, so you escape the tiger. Now what? And I said, well, no more stress. And then I go back into growth again. So stress originally was only used for short intervals, just a short interval. Run away from that tiger, get away, I'm free, I don't have to have been stressed anymore, and I'm back to growth. Today's world, it's quite obvious, it's 24/7, 365 stress every day. The world is creating a stressful environment for us. Are you going to keep your job? You're going to have enough money for the food and pay the rent? Are you going to have friends around? Or are you going to lose your friends or whatever? Every day you're in these stress issues. And it's like, guess what? Every day you're releasing stress hormones. Every day you're inhibiting the health of your cells that are being replaced. They're not being replaced very quickly. In fact, that's one of the causes of illness. And the second cause of illness is also from stress, and that is this. The immune system, which uses a lot of energy. And I say, well, you know that, because if you've ever been sick, you didn't have enough energy to get out of bed. That's how much the immune system is using. It uses a lot. So we go back to the situation. I say, okay, you happen to have a bacterial infection, a bad case of diarrhea happens to be brewing right now, but you're also being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. How much of your energy do you want to fight the diarrhea bacterial infection, and how much do you want to run away from the tiger? So the issue is this. Stress hormones conserve energy from the immune system by, guess what? Inhibiting the immune system function. When you're stressed, you don't want to use all that energy to be in bed and recover. You want to run away from that tiger. So I say, well, you got this bacterial infection. You got a tiger chasing you. Who cares about the infection? Simple reason, as Luis said, if the tiger catches you, the bacterial infection is not your problem anymore. And so the significance is stress has now done two things. One, it shuts down the growth of the body to conserve energy so that you could run away from that tiger. And two, it shuts down or inhibits the immune system, which is protecting you from threat, but internal threat. And the result is what? Stress, and this is a fact. This is it. You ready? 90% of illness on this planet is directly tied to stress. For what reason? Because you've interfered with keeping the body alive by replacing the cells, and you've shut down the immune system as protecting you from the infection, and sure as hell you're going to get sick when you're stressed. That's what the consequence of stress is, sickness. And the reason is why? You're not maintaining yourself. I mean, the immune system is shut down. You know, interesting point. There's a therapeutic use for stress hormones. When a doctor wants to transplant an organ into a person, let's say I want to transplant a kidney or a lung or a heart into a patient, remember, it's foreign tissue. If I transplant somebody else's kidney in your body, your immune system, by definition, should say, hey, not self, and eliminate the kidney, okay? So I say, well, how do doctors make sure that the transplanted kidney isn't rejected? And the answer is, they give the patient stress hormones before doing the operation. So that when the kidney is transplanted, the immune system is being inhibited and will not attack the kidney. So that's how powerful stress hormones are in shutting off your immune system. And I go, yeah, but 90% of the health issues on this problem are from the perception of stress. Whether it's real or not, that's not relevant. It's your perception of it. Your world could be totally safe, but if you have a fear, your cells can't see that the world is safe. All they're talking to is the nervous system. The nervous system says there's fear and we have a reason for it. Then the cells are going to gird themselves up and prepare for the stress. And yet in the real environment, there'd be no reason for having stress, but it's just your perception. So all of a sudden we start to realize that the cells are getting information from the nervous system, which is interpreting the environment and then sending chemistry to the body cells via the blood to adjust the body cells to what's going on in the world. I said, hot out, cool the body down, cold out, warm the body up. So I'm adjusting. And the point about that is, since the cells don't actually see the outside, they only can gauge their activity by what the nervous system sends. And this is where the biggest problems in life come from, because we generate beliefs and perceptions that may not be accurate and totally false. And yet, once we generate them, they control our chemistry. They control our immune system. They control our biology. And so a false assumption could kill you. And this is really critical because, again, the cells are supposed to be adjusting to the environment, but because they're contained inside the skin, they can only adjust to your perception of the environment, which is releasing chemistry, which is controlling their genetics. And so the issue that we come down to now is let's go to the first conclusion. A, you're not controlled by your genes. The genes are simply blueprints that are controlled by the environment, and in this case of humans, very much influenced by your perception of the environment, separating environment from perception, because our perceptions could be right, but our perceptions could be wrong. To the cells, they just see the perceptions, right or wrong. They're going to read whatever the perception is. So wrong perceptions will mislead your biology and take you away from health. Now we have two problems with stress. It shuts off growth and it shuts off the immune system. There's a third problem, which I call adding more stress. When you are in fight or flight, do you think you use conscious reasoning or reflex behavior? You use reflex behavior. The stress hormones squeeze the blood vessels in the gut, causing the blood to go to the periphery. When the stress hormones come into the body, they also go to the brain, and they squeeze the blood vessels in the front of the brain where consciousness is to push more blood to the back for reflex behavior. That means when you're under stress, you are less intelligent. And for my example, I give you the people of the United States. And the reason is the government knows this. And ever since 9/11, they keep in the media, the newspaper, the television, more stress, and the result is since 9/11, every year, the pharmaceutical companies have made 20% more profit every year in selling drugs. So it's important to realize that stress affects you in many different levels, but all of them result in shutting down your life. It has now been demonstrated that love is the greatest growth signal in the world. For example, Yugoslavia, where they have orphanages, the people could not afford to take care of their children, and they sent them to orphanages. They got food, clothing, the protection of living inside. They got everything they needed to live except love. And about 40% of those children became autistic. What is autism is the child is shutting itself off from the world. It's in protection, closing itself down. And all of the parameters of health and intelligence in these children were greatly suppressed. They got everything but love. The issue is, when we are in this direction in protection, we shut off growth, and that's when illness starts. So when we're on this side of the scale, protection leads to disease, and growth leads to wellness. And I said, well, what causes this disease? And the answer is stress. Now, here's the problem that people do not realize. If I just remove the stress from my life, where am I on the scale? It's 0. If you want wellness, it's not just the absence of stress. You need the joy and the love to go to growth. So if you're in the middle place, you're not in real growth and real health. So stress alone is not the problem. It is what we need is more love and life and happiness.